Hi everybody. If you're watching this, you're probably a student in my health education class at the Arts Academy at Benjamin Rush in Philadelphia. But I just wanted to give you a quick video as we start the substance abuse unit. It's going to be less than 15 minutes, and we'll see how long it takes. Before I go any further, I want to talk to you about the class website. As you know, there's two ways to get to the class website. You all have the URL. And if not, you can click on the direct link inside Google Classroom. But in this case, right now, you can either click the health banner, and then it'll tell you what the current unit is, and you can go to that unit. Once you're on that main unit page, it'll give you a foundation statement about the unit. It'll give you links to the other topic pages for the unit. It'll give you the full unit assignments. Now, these do not include in-class things all the time. It does talk about the unit choice projects, and it talks about the unit constructor responses. It gives you a link to the YouTube channel where you're probably watching this video, and it also gives you a link to the specific playlists having to do with substance abuse. Couple banners down here and links to other organizations, one from Philadelphia and one from Pennsylvania. So that's the drugs unit website. You also have the option, if you want to, and this is what a lot of people like to do, you go to the navigation menu, you hover over health units, and then you go down and you click on substance abuse. That'll also get you to the correct page. So I'm going to specifically work on a page having to do with drugs overview, because for the first week of class, maybe a little bit longer, this is what we're going to be working on, a drugs overview. There's a table of contents here that tells you everything that I'm about to show you. And we're going to focus on a couple pages in this slideshow today, but as we go further, there's another text-based explanation. There's a vocabulary handout here. This vocabulary handout, in case you were absent the first day of class, this is the handout that you will need to be able to turn in by the end of the week. We're going to be working on this for 2 or 3 days, and all of the vocabulary answers, actually no, not all, but most of the vocabulary answers are in this slideshow, but that's there for you. As you go down, it talks about data and interpretations. This, of course, is a link to the big survey from the CDC, the Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance Report. The latest reports are as of 2017 for the time being. And nationally, the big three are still alcohol, marijuana, and nicotine products. In some demographics, nicotine products are higher than marijuana, but these are the big three. So you might see nicotine as number 2 for young people, but less and less young people are smoking cigarettes, even though there's still a substantial number smoking cigarettes. There's less and less than before. A large number of young people use alcohol. When we talk about alcohol, we'll talk about why in some countries there's no drinking age, and some it's 16, and some it's 18, and in some it's still 21, just like the majority of the United States. We'll talk about that because there's a difference between recreational drinking when your body's finished growing and you're mature, for light drinking than it is for when you are abusing drinking. There's been a lot of talk lately about marijuana in the news and whether it should be legalized recreationally or nationwide, and several states have made it legal recreationally, but at a federal level it's still not legal as of May of 2020. In the city of Philadelphia, it's technically not legal recreationally, but it's decriminalized, so you can have up to 1 ounce, I believe it is, for personal use, and it would be a fine for public use. And frankly, the police have a lot more to deal with and worry about, so there's a lot of recreational use of marijuana that just goes on publicly as if it's legal, but it's technically not legal in Philadelphia for recreation use. It is legal in the state of Pennsylvania for medicinal use, and it was just recently, within the last year, that dried leaf marijuana was included in that. You're technically not supposed to smoke it. You're supposed to use it in vaporizers and rigs and things like that. But marijuana products are legal for medicinal use, and there are plenty of shops around for you to be able to do that. And then and then there's nicotine products, which of course tobacco and cigarettes, cigars, cigarillos, mini cigars, that is, and things like that. But vaping, and we know how popular vaping is lately. So we'll be looking during this unit. We'll be looking at vaping for sure. Following that, in terms of high school age young people, the next biggest one is medication abuse, prescription and over-the-counter abuse, usually painkillers, antidepressants. Thankfully, you don't see heroin on this list, but this is where it often starts. As you see this little note, in some communities, medication abuse is higher than marijuana and tobacco, so that's kind of scary and troubling as a teacher and as a father. But club drugs are still in the top 5, so like ecstasy and things like that. Ecstasy and Molly are technically the same thing, just Molly's more pure, so we may or may not get a chance to talk about that so much. Sort of plateaued. And then there's things called bath salts and other synthetic drugs, and then inhalants. It's actually more of a problem in middle schools. And then we talk about cocaine, crack, crystal meth, other, not so much a problem in high school, but still a problem in the United States. And again, absent from this list is heroin, which we know in Philadelphia is probably the biggest drug problem in terms of issues with homelessness and addiction and people perpetrating violence to be able to get and things like that. But for high school age young people, it's not nearly as big of a problem statistically as with medication. Unfortunately, there are some. As you further go down this website, there's an entire section about addiction. This section about addiction will help you on the couple of days that we talk about addiction in class. Okay, so we're going to be talking about that. There's 5 highlighted videos for you, or 4 highlighted videos for you talking about addiction. The one thing I really want to focus on is that addiction and dependence, they are basically the same word, but they mean slightly different things. And as you see the highlights, addiction means you really want a drug. Dependence means you need a drug or you need something. So sometimes the need is real, like people that need medication for type 1 diabetes or antibiotics to cure a bacterial infection or blood pressure medicine or something like that. And other times the need is perceived, such as when somebody wakes up and says they need a cup of coffee. Or for that matter, when someone's stressing and they say they need a cigarette. They don't need that. They're dependent on what the results of having that cigarette will be. And reality, what's happening is that with the cigarette, they're addicted. Their body wants the nicotine. So there are some substances you become physically addicted to, which include withdrawal symptoms. There are lots of substances you become psychologically addicted to, where there's no withdrawal symptoms, but you really, really, really want it anyway, and you feel you want it. And then there's substances that it's really just a dependence, where your body thinks that you need it, or you think that you need it. So this differentiation we'll talk about a little bit, but there's dependence and there's addiction, and we need to classify that. There's an article here about Justin Bieber too. But in any case, as you go down further, there's additional links to other web pages and websites. There's some really, really good ones down here if you want to look on your own and check it out. There's a banner to one. It's really a comprehensive self-paced course. If you go through it and test your knowledge, you can get 100 points. It'll only take you about 30 minutes to complete the entire course. It's an online course that they do, and it's really good. So you can get a bonus 100 points if you choose to do that. And then there's some featured videos about the truth about drugs and drug addiction. What is it? Risk factors and long-term effects and drug abuse. We're going to watch a couple of these in school, but you can look at any of them on your own. And of course, you always get extra credit if you do extra work. Some links to other outside organizations. So this is the first week or two in the drug introduction. We're going to focus a lot on this. In terms of individual drugs, our main focus will be on heroin, and we're also going to be looking at nicotine. For the most part, in terms of vaping, we of course will also look at alcohol use, and we'll talk about the difference between safe use of alcohol and unsafe use of alcohol, and we'll talk about how some people can't have any alcohol. So we'll talk about addictions and things like that. All right. On the slideshow, a lot of people get confused on how to use a slideshow, and they have trouble. If you click this particular link, it opens up a new tab and asks you if you want to make your own copy of it. Even if you're not one of my students, go ahead, make a copy of it. You can have it, and it can be a starting point. If you're a teacher, it can be a starting point for your classes. If you're a student, feel free to send it to your teachers. It's fine. I don't care. You can also click this link, which some people have trouble with. For some reason, for certain people, it doesn't allow you to sign in and view the slideshow that way, but you can. So the easiest way to do it for most of you is to click the large button or just watch it on the web page. And I'm not going to read this entire slide. Here's my little laser pointer. I'm not going to read this entire thing because you know how to read, and you can download it or you can open it up and you can get the answers to these things. But you should use this slideshow to answer the questions that are on the handout that you picked up as you walked into class. And if you're not in class, the handout that's immediately under this slideshow. But the most important thing to learn, if you only learn one thing, and you may have saw this popped around in the different pages that I showed you so far on the website, the most important thing to know is that some drugs can be helpful, but all drugs can be harmful. It doesn't matter what drug it is. Obviously, we know drugs that are harmful for you, like heroin and crack and cocaine and crystal meth. Yes, that's obvious. And obviously, we know that alcoholism can be a thing. And obviously, we know that there's dangers from smoking, especially long-term smoking. We know all of these things. But then there's an argument about other drugs. There are some people that say that marijuana is not a drug. It is a drug, and it can be harmful to you. Is it less harmful than other drugs? Of course it is, but we have to take that into consideration. When I say some drugs can be helpful, medications, even ones like antibiotics or Tylenol or Advil, they can be harmful. Some people are allergic to antibiotics. Some people can get liver damage from Tylenol or Advil from excessive use. You can have blood thinners, which you're using for blood pressure, but all of a sudden you get cut, and next thing you know, you're having difficulty stopping your bleeding. Some drugs can be helpful. So if you use medications and drugs the way that they are intended to help you with something, then they're helpful. But all drugs can be harmful. They're just harmful in different ways. So that's something to consider. And the definition we're going to go with in class for what a drug is most substances that enter the body that cause an effect. As you can see, there's notable exceptions. And as you progress through the slides, it'll explain the notable exceptions. The one thing I want to talk about on this slide is some nutrients, specifically sugar, have a drug-like effects to the body. And essential oils and herbs can oftentimes be called drugs. So that's something to consider. They do have medicinal properties, although the FDA does not formally recognize them as use for medicine in this country. Drugs enter the body through the mouth, through needles, through smoking, through inhaling, and through absorption. And these 5 answers, you probably should pause here to copy this, but these 5 answers are the only ways that drugs can enter the body. And as you progress through the next several slides, it gives you examples and more detailed definitions of what each of the 5 categories mean. It also gives you a smoking versus inhaling classification, or clarification, sorry, and talks about a bunch of vocabulary words which you would be able to see the answers to help you fill out the handout. So again, the most important thing to remember is some drugs can be helpful, but all drugs can be harmful. Use this slideshow on your own pace, going back to the website, to be able to fill out that handout, be able to take your notes, be able to understand everything about our introduction. And I'll see you in class.